The email arrived at Ben Beadle's desk October 29th, 2025. Subject line, Chancellor Reeves' unlicensed rental property. He read it twice, then sat back in his chair, smiled grimly. "You have got to be kidding me," he said aloud to empty office. Ben Beadle is CEO of National Residential Landlord Association, represents over 100,000 landlords across Britain, spends every day fighting government regulations, crushing private landlords. And now, the Chancellor herself, Rachel Reeves, just got caught, breaking the exact laws she's been enforcing against his members. The hypocrisy was breathtaking, and Beadle wasn't going to let it slide. This is the story of how one man representing Britain's landlords went to war with the second most powerful person in government. Start with what Beadle knew, what every landlord in Britain knew. Rachel Reeves hated landlords, or at least she governed like she did. Since becoming Chancellor in July 2024, she'd made landlords' lives miserable. New regulations, stricter licensing, higher taxes, tougher enforcement. She championed the Renters' Rights Act, biggest change to private renting in 30 years, made it harder to evict problem tenants, more expensive to maintain properties, more bureaucratic to operate. And licensing? Her obsession. Reeves publicly supported selective licensing schemes requiring landlords to obtain expensive licenses to rent properties, schemes threatening prosecution for non-compliance. Just 10 days before her scandal broke, Reeves posted online about licensing in her own Leeds constituency. Her exact words: "Licensing schemes improve conditions for renters and ensure homes are safe and in decent state of repair." Noble sentiment, unless you're landlord paying hundreds of pounds for bureaucratic permission to rent your own property. Beadle's members complained constantly. "We're being regulated out of business," they told him, treated like criminals for providing housing. He fought back as best he could, lobbied, Parliament, submitted evidence to committees, represented landlords' interests publicly. But Reeves had power. He had advocacy. She won most battles. Until October 29th, when Daily Mail published Bombshell. Rachel Reeves had been renting her family home in Dulwich, South London, for £3,200 per month, without obtaining required selective license from Southwark Council. She broke the law, the exact law she'd been championing against landlords. Beadle couldn't believe it. Called his policy team immediately. "Tell me this is true. Tell me the Chancellor actually did this." They confirmed it. Reeves admitted it herself. Wrote apology letter to Prime Minister. Her excuse? Inadvertent mistake. Claimed she didn't know license was required. Beadle laughed bitterly. Inadvertent mistake? Try telling that to my members who've been prosecuted for same thing. Because here's what Beadle knew, what every landlord knew. Ignorance isn't defense. Housing Act is clear. Landlord is responsible. Always. NRLA members had been fined thousands for failing to license properties. Some prosecuted criminally, some lost rental income through rent repayment orders. Every single one told councils, "I didn't know." Every single one heard, "Ignorance of law is no excuse." But Rachel Reeves, she got apology accepted. Ethics advisor said no investigation needed. Prime Minister said matter closed. Beadle saw red. This was exactly the double standard he'd been fighting. He called an emergency meeting with senior staff. "We need to respond, publicly, strongly." His communications director asked, "How strong?" "Strong enough that they can't ignore us, but measured enough we maintain credibility." They drafted statement. Beadle reviewed it, added sharper language, approved it. October 30th, NRLA released a statement. Rachel Reeves' admission that she failed to obtain proper license demonstrates exactly the double standard landlords face daily. Our members are prosecuted, fined, and dragged through courts for identical, inadvertent mistakes. Yet the Chancellor gets matter closed with simple apology. This is hypocrisy of highest order. Media picked it up immediately. Beadle's quote appeared everywhere. But he wasn't done. That was just opening shot, because more information kept emerging, and it got worse for Reeves. October 31st, government published emails exchanged between Reeves' husband and letting agency. The emails proved something devastating. Reeves had been told about licensing requirement multiple times before renting property. Her husband, Nicholas Joycey, senior civil servant, asked the agency about license. Agency confirmed it would cost £900, offered to arrange it, then nothing happened. License never obtained. Reeves' story changed. First she said she didn't know. Then she admitted emails showed she'd been told. Blamed agency for not following through. Beadle pounced. Second statement, same day. Rachel Reeves initially claimed she didn't know about licensing requirement. Now we discover she was explicitly told about it. Her story changed when evidence emerged. This raises serious questions about her truthfulness. If any NRLA member tried this defense, they'd be prosecuted immediately. The statement was scathing, deliberately. So, Beadle's phone rang constantly. Media interviews, member calls, industry contacts. Everyone wanted to know, would he back down? Would NRLA let this go? His answer was consistent. Absolutely not. This matters. Because it did matter to every landlord who'd ever been punished for compliance failure. November 1st. Beadle appeared on BBC Radio to interview about Reeves' scandal. Host asked, "Isn't this just minor administrative error?" Beadle's response was sharp. "Tell that to NRLA members who've been fined £30,000 for same minor error. Tell that to landlords who've lost thousands in rent repayment orders. If it's minor error, why are landlords punished so severely?" Host tried different angle, but she's apologized. Shouldn't that be enough? Apologies don't work for landlords. Why should they work for Chancellor? Law applies equally, or it should. The interview went viral. Landlords shared it widely. Finally, someone speaking for them, forcefully, publicly. Beadle received hundreds of messages. "Thank you for standing up for us. About time someone held her accountable. Keep fighting." He intended to. Because this wasn't just about Reeves. It was about system that punished ordinary people while protecting powerful ones. November 2nd. Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch called for Reeves to resign. Beadle went further. NRLA published detailed comparison. Title: One law for landlords, another for Chancellor. Content showed side-by-side examples. Regular landlord fails to get licensed, prosecuted, fined up to £30,000, criminal record. Rent repayment order forcing refund of all rent collected. Chancellor fails to get license, apologizes. Matter closed, no investigation, no consequences. The comparison was damning. Impossible to defend. Beadle sent it to every MP, every journalist covering story, every member of NRLA. Response was immediate. MPs started questioning Starmer in Parliament. Why different standards for Chancellor? Starmer's answer was weak. She made mistake. She's apologized. Matter is closed, but matter wasn't closed. Not for Beadle, not for landlords. November 3rd. Letters started arriving at Southern Council from landlords demanding equal treatment. If Rachel Reeves gets away with unlicensed rental, why was I prosecuted? I demand my conviction be overturned. Either enforce law equally or don't enforce it at all. Suffolk Council panicked, issued statement. We treat all cases consistently based on circumstances. Beadle laughed when he read it. Circumstances? The circumstance that matters is she's Chancellor. He encouraged members to keep pressure on. Write your MPs. Contact councils. Demand answers. Thousands did. Beadle's inbox flooded with copies. Sent my letter. MP's office called back. Council asking questions. The campaign was working. Reeves' scandal wouldn't die. November 4th. Reeves gave an interview. Tried damage control. This was genuine mistake. I take full responsibility. I've corrected it. Beadle responded within hours. Statement to press. Rachel Reeves says she takes full responsibility, yet she faces no consequences. When our members take full responsibility, they still get prosecuted. Taking responsibility means accepting punishment, not just saying sorry and moving on. His members loved it. Finally, voice fighting back, not backing down. November 5th. Reeves's tenants became story. Legal experts pointed out tenants in unlicensed property can claim rent repayment order, get back all rent paid, every penny. Reeves had charged £3,200 per month for 4 months, nearly £13,000. Her tenants could sue for all of it back, plus costs. Beadle saw opportunity. NRLA published guide. Are you Rachel Reeves's tenant? Know your rights. Explained rent repayment order process. How to apply, what to claim. If Chancellor's tenants deserve compensation, they should get it, just like every other tenant in unlicensed property. Media asked Beadle, are you encouraging Reeves's tenants to sue her? His answer, I'm informing them of their legal rights, same rights any tenant has. If that creates problems for Chancellor, that's consequence of her law breaking. Perfect response. Can't argue with informing people of legal rights. November 6th, more revelations. Property safety issues. Conservatives investigated Reeves's rental property, found potential safety violations, smoke alarms possibly inadequate, gas safety certificate questions, energy performance certificate concerns. If true, Reeves violated labor's own landlord safety laws she championed. Beadle couldn't make this up. Chancellor advocates for strictest safety standards, then potentially violates them herself. You cannot write better satire. NRLA published another comparison. Landlord safety violations versus Chancellor safety violations. Again, the double standard was glaring. November 7th, Beadle received call from Downing Street. Junior aide. Would Mr. Beadle consider statement supporting Chancellor? Acknowledging everyone makes mistakes? Beadle's response was instant. No. Not until Chancellor acknowledges her mistakes have same consequences as everyone else's. Aide tried persuading. This isn't helping anyone. Creates division. Division already exists. Between powerful people who get forgiven and ordinary people who get punished. I'm highlighting it, not creating it. Call into poorly. But Beadle didn't care. He answered to landlords, not Downing Street, November 8th. Reeves gave speech on housing, talked about improving standards in private rented sector. Beadle watched it live, felt anger rising. She was lecturing landlords about standards while under investigation for breaking those standards herself. He drafted response immediately, published before her speech finished. Rachel Reeves lectures landlords about housing standards. Perhaps she should start by following standards herself. Lead by example. Chancellor.tweet went viral. Thousands of shares. Landlords adding their own experiences. She fined me £5,000 for licensing error. Now she does same thing. Hypocrite. Prosecuted for safety violation while Chancellor violates safety rules. One law for them, another for us. The anger was real. Justify. Beadle channeled it productively. November 9th. Parliamentary question submitted. Will government apply same penalties to Chancellor Reeves as applied to private landlords for unlicensed rentals? Answer came from housing minister. Bureaucratic nonsense about individual circumstance and appropriate responses. Translation. No. Different rules for Chancellor. Beadle seized on it. Government admits it. Different standards for powerful. Exactly what we've been saying. November 10th. 3 weeks since scandal broke. Still dominating news. Usually these things fade. Not this one. Beadle made sure of it every few days. New angle, new statement, new comparison. He was relentless because his members needed him to be. Ben, when will you let this go? Journalist asked. When government treats landlords fairly, when double standards end, when Chancellor faces same consequences as everyone else. Until then, I keep fighting. That became his standard response. Simple, clear, unyielding. November 15th. Southwark Council confirmed. No prosecution of Reeves, not in public interest. Beadle exploded. Publicly, not in public interest, they prosecute struggling landlords who make identical mistakes. But prosecuting Chancellor isn't public interest. This is corruption of justice system. Strong language, intentionally. So, media asked if he'd gone too far. Corruption is strong word. Then find better word for system that punishes poor and excuses powerful. I'll wait. No better word existed. His point stood. Today, 3 months later, Reeves remains Chancellor. No investigation, no prosecution, no real consequences. She paid £900 for license she should have had originally, applied retroactively. That's it. That's her punishment. Meanwhile, NRLA members continue facing prosecutions. Fines, criminal records, rent repayment orders for identical and inadvertent mistakes. Ben Beadle hasn't stopped fighting, hasn't forgotten, hasn't forgiven. Every time Reeves announces new landlord regulation, Beadle reminds everyone. Chancellor who broke landlord law now making more landlord laws. Every time government talks about raising standards, Beadle responds, start with yourselves. He's become thorn in Reeves's side. Constant reminder of her hypocrisy. And he represents 100,000 landlords who feel exactly same way. The cameras turn to Westminster Reeves making policy for landlords she doesn't follow herself. The cameras turn to NRLA headquarters, Beadle fighting for landlords who can't fight for themselves. Chancellor versus landlord leader. Power versus principle. Hypocrisy versus accountability. Reeves has government authority. Beadle has moral high ground. She broke law and walked away. His members break law and get destroyed. That's the story. That's the injustice. That's why Beadle won't quit. Because someone has to speak for landlords. Someone has to demand equal treatment. And Ben Beadle decided that someone is him. 100,000 landlords standing behind him, all watching, all remembering. Rachel Reeves broke the law. Got away with it. Ben Beadle will never let anyone forget it. The landlord leader versus hypocrite chancellor. Fight continuing. Because fairness matters. Justice matters. Equal treatment under law matters. Reeves proved powerful. People don't believe that. Beadle's fighting to prove them wrong. The war for landlord justice, led by man who won't back down, against Chancellor who thought she was above the law. Ben Beadle versus Rachel Reeves. 100,000 landlords versus government hypocrisy. The battle isn't over. Not even close. Every landlord prosecuted for licensing violation remembers Reeves got away with it. Every landlord paying fines remembers Chancellor paid nothing. Every landlord with criminal record remembers Chancellor has none. That's Beadle's ammunition. That's his case. That's his cause. And he's not stopping until justice is done.